Discernment. Discernment means that you're able to think for yourself and you don't have to get a bunch of permission from everybody else. And that's not what the system wants. The system doesn't want people with discernment, right? They want to get rid of those people. They need to get rid of anybody who, that's why, like police, for example, they'll take these tests and they try to get rid of the smart ones who have discernment. Because they're not looking for guys with intelligence, they're looking for guys that are obedient. Remember, I've been over this intelligence versus obedience thing. And most people still have it in their head that obedience is a part of intelligence. It is not. It's I guess you could call it a type of intelligence, a type of trainability, no different than you would train a dog, but it's not the same thing as actual discernment. Discernment means someone who actually has enough experience. There's that word, the E word, that pops up periodically when I talk about this kind of stuff. Experience comes from time. That's it. That's the only way you get experience. It's just time and doing something. So that experience that works against you and works for you at the same time, you're then able to use that to discern whether or not something is appropriate at the time, rather than just blindly obeying orders or blindly obeying some leader or something like that. Unfortunately, it's just easier to just obey orders and then just check out. That's easier, right? Remember, there's two laws on the planet, physics and conscience, and if you don't have to worry about physics because, physics you don't really have to think about. You stay pretty well planted to the ground. Gravity does the work for you. There's no department of gravity. It kind of does it for you, for example. So since you don't have to worry about your physics, you just have to worry about conscience. Well, most people subrogate the job of responsibility for conscience to somebody else, to a boss or somebody like that. And this is where you get conversations like you walk into a place and you tell the person behind the counter, hey, I'm having this problem, and look and see, and the person who's standing behind the counter, eventually the light kicks on and they go, oh yeah, I guess that is a really big problem, isn't it? Man, we should fix that. And then they go, and then you say, great, let's fix it. And they go, oh, well, company policy says, fill in the blank. Discernment used to be what used to be like for guys like me who, when I do employ people, I want discernment. I don't want someone to just blindly follow. Hey, we might have some guidelines, but if you see a problem and that you can legitimately fix it, then your job is to legitimately fix the problem, not just send somebody on their way and then send them back into some, endless layer of voicemail hell, where they can never get a hold of somebody. But that's what we have now. We have people who just go, they'll just agree with you and go, yeah, it really sucks. Sorry, that's our policy. That's it, right? Because it's easier just to take your brain out and not have to worry about it. Well, but I'll lose my job. Yeah, see, that's the other problem. See, when you work for these giant companies and giant government, it is the same thing. Giant companies, giant banks, giant government, again, same people. They want obedience. They don't want people with discernment. Discernment will get you fired, right? I know I'm talking to somebody with this video. I know there's people out there that'll tell stories of this. Like, yeah, I fixed the problem and then I got called into the office and then they fired me. Like, yeah, this is one of these things. And it's because remember, and I've been talking about this recently. I've been really hitting this recently. And I don't know if the message is getting out there. Most companies, the vast majority of companies that are out there, can no longer survive. Well, but they're making record profits. No, they have record dollars. And their dollars aren't worth shit. They have record dollars. They have worthless record dollars. They have vaults full of fake dollars that isn't worth anything. Their companies themselves are not actually profitable. And so their goal is to just keep not paying, for example, insurance is to not pay out claims. For other companies and other business models, it's designed to no, just whatever the algorithm says or whatever the company policy says. Because as soon as you give people the freedom to use discernment, in their job, they start seeing problems. And then they start trying to solve those problems. But when you solve those problems, there's no money in that. Not only is there no money in solving those problems, a lot of times it starts costing shareholders money. Because like, oh, well, now we're not as profitable. Yeah, you solved the problem, but we don't make as much money now. And a bunch of people will take this. I know there's a bunch, because there's a bunch of accounts that follow me from alt accounts, and you're going to take that, and then you say, corporate greed, and all that nonsense, as opposed to listening like, yes, it's corporate greed, but not for the reasons that you think. It's not the same. No, it's the idea. I mean, you can go back to the idea of the fiduciary responsibility laws and things like that, which, again, it's like investors were never supposed to be promised or guaranteed returns. It's a gamble. You're gambling. Dodge Brothers, you are gambling on that, and you are not guaranteed a return. Well, but then nobody would invest if they weren't guaranteed a return. Yep, you're right. They wouldn't, and they shouldn't. What they would do is they would go start their own businesses. They would go start their own competing companies. They would go out to their garages or their shops, and they would start their own competing companies. That's what they would do. And that's what they should do. But there's no money in that for the government, right? That's why giant companies and giant government work together to get rid of small businesses like that. Because small businesses compete directly against that. Not in the way that you might think, oh, they compete against them, but they also don't pay taxes. Small businesses, generally speaking, eventually get an attitude about it. And they just say, listen, I'm no longer doing this. I'm going to go buy a backhoe, and I'm just going to have like a whole bunch of lye around the house. And when the tax man shows up, right? I mean, like, that's small businesses, right? Oh my God, that's like criminal. I don't care what you think. Nowhere have I given anybody the impression, to my knowledge, that I give a shit about what people in big business and people out there, who don't have to deal with this shit on a daily basis think. Small businesses out here, those of us out here in the real world, we have to do this stuff every single day. We are the competent people. We are the ones who do all of that shit that you don't want to do, that a lot of people don't want to do, I should say. There's a lot of us, and this is just reality. And this is why they don't like small businesses, why they want them gone. So these companies, they're not profitable because they've had to try and compete against all that. And they've had to just spend endless amounts of fake money and go into huge amounts of debt that they can never pay back. All they can do is just refinance. Just borrow and refinance, borrow and refinance. That's it. That's all they can do. Which is why it's like, well, okay, that's why I mentioned, like, what makes you think that any of this is going to come back?